Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. And today we are going to be comparing three devices. We're focusing on 10.3-ish inch monochromatic non-front lit devices that you can currently find on the market. And the three that I'll be comparing here, they're by no means the only ones because we have other notable competitors as well. But the three that I'm focusing on here is Remarkable Pure versus Boox Go 10.3 Gen 2 non-front lit version and the now aging Supernote Manta or the A5X2. These two are 300 PPI, so Manta and Boox 300 PPI, Remarkable Pure remarkably 227 PPI. So let's see, how can it stack against the other two competitors? So if we start with the design aspect, all three are very different. We have the largest of them is the Supernote A5X2 or Manta because it has the largest display, 10.65 or 10.7 inch monochromatic non-front lit display, 300 PPI. It has an all plastic build, but it's a really high quality plastic and it gives you a really nice feel. It's thin, it's nicely shaped, it holds really well in the hand, has a half cover, very light, very thin, really unique type of a looking and feeling device that is simply a individual experience. Once you start working with it, it doesn't feel like any other tablet that you may pick up and use. And we have the added benefit of the repairability because the design of the Supernote A5X2 or Manta implements the ability to use the screws. So you can unscrew it, you can open it up, you can replace the battery. If Supernote at any point gives us upgradable modules, you will be able to upgrade the modules at just the cost of buying a new SoC motherboard, for example. Then we have the Boox Go 10.3, which is a slightly older school approach, really elegant, really well made. So we have 4.7 millimeters, I believe, thin, or 4.8, so very thin. But we have a aluminum alloy body, glass on top, so a little bit heavier, a little bit more kind of rigid, and a little bit more vulnerable and less durable than the Supernote Manta is, for example. However, it looks more sexier, it's a little bit more sleek, and it's a little bit more of a kind of like ooh la la ah kind of thing, if that's what you're associating metal and glass design with. I think that it incorporates it in a really nice way. It's excellently built and it actually improved some of the shortcomings of the Gen 1 that it had as far as the build quality goes. Those are now all resolved in Gen 2, which is a good thing to see. And finally, we have the Remarkable Pure, which is again all plastic except glass on top. So that's the difference. Supernote Manta is plastic panel as well. So all plastic, most durable out of all three of these. But Remarkable Pure introduces plastic housing, durable type of plastic, and also screws so that you can open it up and that it's better repairability. Unlike with the Supernote Manta, the use of plastics here on the Remarkable Pure, it just gives a much cheaper feel and much cheaper look when you're actually dealing with it. That may be okay simply because the price difference between the Remarkable Pure and the Manta is actually very significant, and the Pure is supposed to be like a budget-ish version of a Remarkable. So if that's what you're looking for, then that, I guess, makes sense. Specification-wise, well, they kind of rate Remarkable Pure at the bottom, then you get Supernote Manta, and then you have Boox on top. But that doesn't really reflect the real-world performance because, as we'll see in the DAF portion of the video, it really is down to specifications that the devices are equipped with, how they are utilized, and what type of technology is used. Because, for example, Boox Go 10.3 is the most powerful one on the paper, right? But it uses an older type of a screen and it uses an active USI pen. Well, so does the Remarkable. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is custom drivers and how these things are implemented. And as you'll see, a dramatic difference in writing latency between these two. So specifications on the paper, yes, Boox Go 10.3 Gen 2 is the dominant one, but it's not a reflection of what you're supposed to expect as far as the performance, real-world performance, is in question. Usability and platform-wise, they are all basically focusing on trying to do good e-reader capabilities, good document processing capabilities, and really good note-taking capabilities. All three of these have really, really excellent note-taking capabilities across the board. There are strong points for all of the different platforms, and I'm going to try and summarize it to make it very, very simple, because this is a huge topic. But in summary, Remarkable is the simplest one, pick up and go type of an experience for anything writing or reading related. So if that's what matters to you most, then the Remarkable Paper Pure is the one that will win because of the platform itself and how it is made. The learning curve is really low, the integration is getting better and better with the outside systems, and as a platform generally, it works really well. On paper, it has a lot of features, but the implementation of these features is sometimes great, sometimes not so great. And unfortunately, we've seen over the past 7 or even more years, it takes Remarkable team a lot of time to address basic issues, and some of them haven't been addressed at all. For example, open up any medium to larger EPUB book on a Remarkable, go to the middle of the book and change the font size, and just put up a coffee or a cup of tea and wait until it actually does the change. Yes, on paper it has all the functionalities, but it's not all rosy. However, if your priorities are note-taking first, document processing second, and ease of use above everything else that encompasses it, well, Remarkable is definitely a winner there. And then in the middle of it, we will have the Supernote Manta, which basically has a very similar type of ease of use logic and user experience, and in many ways actually much better and focused user experience design and language than the Remarkable platform does. However, on the Supernote, you have much more functionalities, a lot more power that's never in your face, but it's never buried deep. It's always at your fingertips, but that means that because you have a lot more functionalities, it means that the learning curve is a little bit steeper than on the Remarkable 2. That being said, once you actually learn what it is that you can do and how you can do it on a Supernote, it's the type of knowledge that retains. You don't have to relearn it because it makes sense. And that's what makes an excellent user experience on the Supernote Manta. And for me, it makes it the most balanced and the most powerful platform of these three, because it gives you at your fingertips ease of use, easily using for writing and reading and document processing. But if your needs do kind of expand and you need a little bit more, it's all already there, and it's not introducing something fundamentally new concept or a menu or a sub-menu or anything like that. It's all there, and you can just simply grow your skill set as your needs grow in a very organic way. The plateau of functionalities is on the Supernote platform is still considerably higher than it is on a Remarkable. Although Remarkable is slowly kind of inking forward, but Supernote is not standing still either. So there's quite a bit of discrepancy there still. Then we get to the Boox Go 10.3 and the Boox platform. And that one makes sense if what you're looking for is a full-blown Android tablet with the Google Play Store and all of the capabilities that that carries with it. So you needed like a super powerful SoC, you need all of these functionalities, and you need an Android system that happens to be using an e-ink screen. Then that makes sense. But the price to pay for it is really, really high because Boox has terrible user experience. Everything is buried in menus, in sub-menus. Names of functionalities are changing and are inconsistent. For example, text extract becomes reflow because it was reflow before. And it's like inconsistencies all over the place. It's a mess on top of a mess on top of a mess, and they're trying to clean up that mess. They really are trying to clean up the mess by putting new rugs on top of the piles of dirt and mess that's already there. They're not doing a systemic redesign and correction of things. They're simply masking it. And that is the absolute worst way that you can attempt to fix something as a broken user experience. So that's something that you absolutely have to take into consideration, because it will give you headaches. It will be a point of tripping over. But as far as functionalities and flexibilities and expandability goes, it basically outpaces the other two platforms completely, because Remarkable is very closed, Supernote is somewhat more open, especially with the Ink Hub now being introduced, and then you have Boox with an Android, which is a very, very open platform. So again, it depends what your needs are and what your priorities are, but that's how they basically compare as platforms and devices that you can use. Now, let's take a look, a more in-depth analysis, how their display performance compares between these three fairly similar devices, but we have to kind of see primarily how does the Remarkable Paper Pure compete, because it's the only one that's 227 PPI versus these other two 300 PPI devices. So let's commence with the display analysis framework, or the DAF portion of the video. I'm still dialing in the calibrations and all of these kinds of things. That's why the DAF is not public yet, but I am getting much, much closer here. However, doing these tests and sharing them with you, it also gives me two types of insights. Number one is what are the people interested in and how meaningful different aspects of these tests are. And the second one, which is much more important, is it gives me a more objective understanding of how to carefully balance the weighing and which scores matter most in your perception of using a device like this, because there's like so many aspects that you can measure. So that's why it's taking such a long time to kind of do this, because I really, really want to dial it in to be something meaningful. And it's getting closer. It's not there yet. There's a few more tweaks to kind of go through, but these comparisons definitely help me understand this. Let's start as usual with readability, where I am measuring out how readable text is on these devices. Since we have three devices here, it's going to be very, very difficult for me to put them side by side on the screen, the end results. So I'm just going to focus on the end values so that we can compare them in the DAF tool here. So we have Remarkable Paper Pure as blue, Go 10.3 Gen 2 non-front lit as orange, and Supernote Manta as red. We can see across the board here in readability where higher is better. Remarkable Paper Pure 227 PPI versus 300 PPI. It cannot compare. It is simply not there. It can't do the job that it needs to do. It's trying to do a really good job, right? So it's not really that far behind, but it is consistently behind all of these other 300 PPI devices, which makes sense. The interesting part here is that we can't forget that Supernote Manta is a 10.65-inch device versus 10.3-inch device of the Go 10.3, which means that in readability, it has an advantage. It should score higher than the Go 10.3. Why? Because it's a larger display at the same display density, 300 ppi. So let's say a 6-point font is going to be rendered slightly larger than on the Go 10.3, and that should be a slight advantage for the Manta. And that's not something that we're actually seeing here. The only place where Manta actually outperforms Go 10.3 in readability is in the thin fonts. But in the standard fonts and in the thick fonts, it's actually performing worse than the Go 10.3. So the end results here is that in readability portion, out of these three, Go 10.3 Gen 2 non-front lit is the best one. Switching over to contrast and uniformity, and we have contrast where I'm measuring rendering of the pure black and pure white page in three different lighting conditions: excellent, average, and poor lighting conditions. And it's also measuring out the uniformity of the display, how uniform is the image and how many imperfections there are. Higher is better here. And we can see that even though, Remarkable say that they have done the best contrast display they've ever done, it is good, but again, you have 227 PPI, which means smaller number of physical black ink cells and white ink cells on that display for the same area versus the 300 PPI. And as you can see here, both the Supernote Manta and the Go 10.3, they have a very, very similar type of density, which is higher than Remarkable Paper Pure. So Remarkable Paper Pure is really putting a decent fight here, but it can't really reach the 300 PPI contrast. Interestingly, in the uniformity section here, we can see that it's much, much more uniform than either of these two. And that's something that we've noticed as well, that the e-ink panels, 300 PPI e-ink panels, they suffer from non-uniformity or uniformity issues when compared to the 227 PPIs, and it's directly reflected here. Not really much that you can do as a producer of these devices, because you source them from e-ink, but yeah, that as a consequence, lower contrast, but better, much better uniformity here. However, this I think exposes one of the weaknesses of the DAF balancing at the moment for the final score, because I think that the uniformity is carrying too much weight at the moment, so this is something that I'll have to adjust. But as it is now, even though all three are really clear, the uniformity of the image on the Remarkable Paper Pure helps it win in the contrast and uniformity category here between these three. Moving on to reflectivity, again we have higher is better. We can see that sharpness is really similar between the Go 10.3 Gen 2 and the Remarkable Paper Pure, while Supernote lags way behind, and we know that because that Feel Right 2 is a little bit kind of glarish. It's not really performing that great as far as reflectivity sharpness goes. However, where it's really good is in dampening the intensity of that reflectivity, and we can see that again here measured out. It's far sharper than the other two, and when you combine these scores, we have really, really similar type of reflectivity between Remarkable Paper Pure and Go 10.3, but Remarkable Paper Pure does win, technically speaking. Why do I say technically speaking? Because there's one caveat about Remarkable Paper Pure. The sharpness is past 90, and it's like so much, it diffuses to such a degree that you can, in certain situations, actually get glare like across, like from a small reflection point across a huge area of the screen. Yes, it's very nicely diffused and the intensity is okay, but the area affected from a small point of reflection is like really, really large on a Remarkable Paper Pure, so it's something to keep in mind. When looking at ghosting performance, well, yes, Remarkable Paper Pure outperforms all of them, like by a really, really strong degree at 90.22. Then we have Go 10.3 Gen 2, which is a very ghosty device, but it's very interesting to see that actually Supernote Manta A5X2 is underperforming. It's even more ghostlier than the Go 10.3. So clear winner here, Remarkable Paper Pure, by a really strong margin. Then we're checking out the surface roughness, or the paper-like type of structure. And again, here we see that Remarkable Paper Pure is outperforming both of these. It's simply in a different league, because all of the aspects of the paper-like raspness and the paper-like feel of that display is way, way better than either Go 10.3 and especially than the Supernote A5X2 Manta, which again has that Feel Right surface on top, which some people are a fan of. I'm not necessarily a fan of. I find it a little bit too slippery, a little bit too much of this and that. When you actually compare the writing feel of the Remarkable Paper Pure and Supernote Manta, it's two completely different ball games, and it's much more paper-like on the Remarkable Paper Pure, again with one caveat. Because of the hardness of the nib of the pen and the hardness of the screen, you get that initial tapping, which you don't get on either of these two other devices. So it's something that some users just get used to, others don't. something for you to be aware of. Checking out the refresh time, finally we have an area where Supernote A5X2 is actually winning against these two with a 66.63 score. Here we have like Supernote Manta, Boox, and then Remarkable Pure. None of these are like dramatically overperforming each other, so they're in a similar type of performance category, but yeah, consistently so, Supernote is a faster performer. Then we talk about the writing latency, and we see that Go 10.3 Gen 2, poor Gen 2, crippled with that USI active pen. Yes, it finally works, but it's really, really slow, and it's simply like several generations behind when comparing to the Remarkable Pure, which is also a couple of generations behind the 2127. Nothing to smirk at, but Supernote A5X2 breaks that 20 millisecond barrier and averages at 17.52, which makes it the winner in the writing latency. Checking out the surface to distance here, this is important because none of these three are front-lit devices, so the whole point of losing a front light is to gain closeness from the surface to the screen itself, so that you can get better image quality, better brightness, better immersion with the content. And here, Supernote Manta and Boox Go 10.3 Gen 2 are the same at around 0.8 millimeters, where Remarkable Pure actually edges them out at 0.7 millimeters. And finally, we have battery life. None of these are front-lit devices, so we only have the front light off category, obviously. We have reading for 1 hour, flipping pages every 20 seconds and averaging out the results. And we have Supernote Manta and Remarkable Pure equaling out at around 50 hours of continuous reading per charge, with Go 10.3 winning with 66.67 hours per charge of continuous reading. And continuous writing, interestingly, Remarkable Pure actually wins here. So it's not only really fast writing latency, but it's also really, really efficient at how it handles it. Then we have Go 10.3 at 11.1 hours, and finally Supernote Manta at 8.33. That being said, in my book, anything that can get you at 8 hours or more of continuous writing per charge is an excellent result. So all three of these are excellent, but Remarkable Pure is the most excellent of these three. So what does that mean for the end results? As calibrated as the DAF tool is right now, because as I mentioned, the contrasting with the uniformity, that one definitely needs balancing more. So we have, as it is now, Remarkable Pure actually wins because of the combination of factors. And in different categories, I combine different ways for ghosting, writing latency, and all of that kind of stuff. Obviously, for e-reader, we're talking about sharpness, readability, contrast, and ghosting, and refresh time as important aspects. And when we combine all of these, we got Remarkable Pure as point number 1, then Go 10.3, and then Supernote Manta. Switching over to Notebook, we have, interestingly, Remarkable Pure again winning, mainly, I believe, because of that surface roughness, which absolutely dominates the other two. Really good writing latency, good deghosting performance, okay readability and contrast. And all of that amounts that as a whole package, Remarkable Pure wins comfortably over these two, then followed by the Supernote Manta, which is then closely followed by the Boox Go 10.3. Finally, as an e-tablet, different aspects and categories. Again, remember, from a display point perspective, Boox does get a bonus for the Google Play Store that it has it, but it's not enough to offset the ghosting, the really slow writing latency, and certain other aspects that it was actually struggling throughout the DAF. And interestingly, the Remarkable Pure, from a display point perspective, also wins here, followed by the Supernote and then Boox. So the final results, Remarkable Pure wins, then followed by the Supernote Manta, and then followed by Boox Go 10.3. Note about these results. I am definitely worried about this here, this aspect, because I know internally that contrast and uniformity category carries a lot of weight. And Remarkable Pure wins in this category. And I think this is something that's offsetting these results. And it's offset because the uniformity is carrying way too much weight. So that needs adjusting, but only if it starts repeating, and I see a pattern of it repeating with other devices as well through time. So it's something that I'm going to be paying attention to and revise over time. And then once it's revised, I will revisit all of these comparisons that I've done until I'm satisfied with the DAF tool to be like fully calibrated the way that I want it. This, I think, would be a big asterisk here on, and an explanation on how a 227 PPI device that's worse in readability overall, and it's, technically speaking, contrast not as good as the others, how can it actually win in the overall? Well, you know, as you've seen, it has really good battery life, it has excellent writing latency, it has excellent deghosting, it has really good surface to screen distance, it has excellent surface writing feel. So there are many other aspects, but I'm just a little bit worried that that uniformity is carrying a little bit too much weight. I may be wrong, we'll see. So there you go. That's how these three compare. I'm really interested always to kind of see how these devices are going to stack up against each other, because objectively they are different, but they are competitors, and there's like so many complicated layers upon layers between these different devices. It's a much more complex and messy of a marketplace than phones, computers, and things like that. This is the reason why I keep going with the channel and why I keep doing these types of videos, to kind of make it easier on prospective buyers and those who are interested in to see how these devices compare and what you can expect from them. Please do let me know in the comments down below, what are your thoughts? Which of these devices is your favorite, or which one do you maybe have, and what are your experiences and use cases with these devices? Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye.